All right, so in this lesson, we're going to talk about something very useful in Figma called components. So far in our tutorial pages, we've created multiple cards essentially for each step of the tutorial, right? As the user goes through from step number 1 all the way through step number 3. They'll view this little tutorial card from where they can get their information about how the app works. Now, let's say I realize that I want to go ahead and change the roundedness of this background over here. So, of course, you can go over here and let's say from 25, we can set that to 15. But now watch what happens. Our tutorial step number 2 and step number 3 still have a corner radius of 25. That's because there's really no relation between each of these cards here. But what components allow us to do is to actually go ahead and create one instance of these cards, or really anything that's going to have a very similar style or really similar configuration, just like we do here, right? Even though the text for every card is different, but generally we have a lot more going on here in terms of styling or how the elements are placed. And unless we go and make that change to each screen individually, we won't be able to get it otherwise. So that's where components come into play. I'm going to go ahead and undo that border radius here, just to make sure it's 25 again. There we go. And now we're going to convert this into a component, and then you'll see how it's useful. So again, components can be any part of the design that you want to duplicate while maintaining a certain style or certain characteristic, so that if at any point you decide to change that, or change the style, change the characteristics of that component, you can do so in one place and not have to do it in multiple places. If you watched the lesson where we did the color styles, it's very similar to color styles where if you just make that one change here, all of our buttons and elements using that color style will change instead of us having to go in one by one and changing them. So let's go ahead and jump in and actually make a component. So let's start with the card over here on tutorial step number 1. If you haven't been following along, be sure to go to the resources folder here, which you can get again from the beginning of this section, and then go into mockups and find the lesson that you're on, and you can go ahead and open the file and continue along with us. Otherwise, let's jump in. I'm just going to go ahead and zoom into here. Let's go ahead and select this group. And as you might remember, that group contains the text here, the little title, as well as the background. Now, I just noticed that my button and my icon here, my vector here, aren't properly inside of the group. So let's go ahead over here to the layers panel and just go ahead and firstly, let's group the next button together, the rectangle as well as the text, using Command G. Let's name this next button. And then we have the vector here. So let's go ahead and just select these two. For some reason, they've been grouped together, but we want to actually go ahead and just separate them and put them in this group. There we go. And now we have everything in one group. I'm just going to go ahead and reorder a couple of things. Bring this browse all the way up here. Bring this up here, just so that they're in kind of a nice order from top to bottom. I think that looks good. So now let's go ahead and select the whole group all together. Make sure you have the group selected with every element inside. Go all the way up here where it says create component. Alternatively, you can do Option Command K or Alt Control K, and that will do the same thing. And so now you'll see on my layers panel, this group all of a sudden has a new icon, and even the text is purple. And so that's telling us that this is now a component. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and hold Alt and go ahead and drag another copy into this page, the tutorial step number 2 page. Now, because I've created my component from this group here, this is now my master component. What I've done now is I've gone ahead and created an instance from that master component, meaning that this group here now belongs to the properties and the styling and everything here. So let's head on over to our tutorial step 2 page. I'm just going to go ahead and bring this outside. This is the card that was originally on here. I'm going to bring this out as well. Just going to reorder that so it's on top. Okay, so now what we want to do is insert this text. So go into here, Control C to copy, paste that in there. Same thing for the text down here. Now for the image here, I'm going to do something different because this is now an instance of that master component. I can't go ahead and just bring elements inside of here, but I can definitely add stuff here and then choose to hide or unhide the things that I want to show in each instance of it. So let's go ahead and double click into here to get our vector icon over here. I'm just going to do copy. Let's go up here to our master component here and just paste that in. And now I'm just going to go ahead and make sure I align it with my other icon here. There we go. Let's go all the way down and do the same thing with this icon here using Command C. Go up here and then let's go ahead and paste that in there. And looks like I've accidentally inserted them into the other vector's frames. So make sure that you have your frames independent of each other for the icons here. And so now what we can do here, let's go ahead and just get rid of this since we're done with it and just center this along. I think that's centered. Let's go ahead and also center along the master component on this page. Or you can just go over here and press the horizontal and vertical centers and that will do the same thing. And let's go ahead and copy this. Go ahead and select this tutorial page. But before we paste it in here, let's go ahead and let's just drag this out of here and drag these as well. I group things a little bit weirdly in my tutorial card. So let's go ahead and select our tutorial step 3 and then go ahead and paste. So now we have another one. Let's go ahead and copy the text here into here and this one into here. And you'll notice this one's not centered. So first let's go ahead and delete this group here and go all the way up to our master component here. And what we're going to do is just go ahead and stretch that text all the way through to match our body text, and then go ahead and click text align center. So now if I go down here, that should look good. Now, what about the icons over here? Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to double click into here. Remember, although this is an instance of a component, you still have control over some of the things, such as what you show and what you hide in here. Go ahead and select this group and go to where we have towels, we have washing machine, and we have the shop icon. So I'm going to go ahead and hide the shop icon and the washing machine. So we just have the towels here, the clean towels. Let's go up here, double click into here and do the exact same thing. In this one though, let's go ahead and hide the towel, the shop, and then we just have the washing machine. And last but not least, up here. Now, one thing I do want to mention for this card here, because this is the master component, if I make any change to it, even if I hide those extra icons in here, it will actually go ahead and remove it from my other pages as well. So that's not what we want here. Typically, when you create components, you want to go ahead and place your components in a separate place, somewhere different, somewhere separate, so that you can reuse it and edit it from somewhere else. So why don't we go ahead and drag this outside and just place it here for now. And I know it looks a little bit unorganized. In the next lesson, we're going to come back and clean that up. But for now, let's go ahead and press Command C, select our tutorial frame here and do Command V. And so now I have another instance of that master component. Now if I go in here and then hide my towels and my washing machine, I just have my shop icon, which is exactly what we want. So why did we just do that there? I know we got exactly the same result as before. Now let me explain what's different. If you go up to your master component here, and you can identify a master component from their instances by actually looking at the symbol here. a master component has this little diamond icon right beside the name. And if I go down here, since this is an instance of that master component, I can see it doesn't have that 4 small diamond icon. It just has one empty one. So that tells me that this is an instance of that master component. So now if I go up here and double click into my master component until I select this rectangle here, now let's say I want to change my roundedness to 0, just as an example here. Now if I go down here to my step number 1, you see it has a corner radius of 0. Same thing for step number 2, and same thing for step number 3. That's pretty cool, right? Now if I go back here and use command click onto my background and give it a border radius of 20, the same thing will be applied to all the other instances. Let's say I've decided now to actually align all my text to the left here. So if I select my text and do align left in here, just going to make sure these have the same size. Okay, that's good. I'm just going to select them and make sure they're centered as well. And it looks like they are. So now if I go down here, you'll see my text has changed throughout all my instances. And how cool is that? Instead of having to make a change on all my groups here, now I'm just making a change to the master component there. So now I'm just going to go ahead and select both text here and center them again. And now if I zoom out, you'll see the changes have been made here as well. So let's go ahead and also rename this group 2 to say tutorial card, just so that we know exactly what this master component represents. So now if I go down here, and let's say for some reason in my step 1 or my step 1 frame here, I want to go ahead and use this as a completely separate group with no relation to that master component, although that's where we got it from. But let's say you want to go ahead and completely get rid of that relation there. So all you have to do is just go over to the properties panel here, and then where it says tutorial card, go ahead and select that, and then you can go ahead and select detach instance. And so this is now a separate group, or actually even a separate frame. If I go to my layers panel, you see now it doesn't have the same icon that it had before here. So now if I just go ahead and jump in here and let's just say move these around, and let's say delete this icon here, this will have no relation to the master component nor any of the other instances. So this is now completely separate, and whatever we do to it will just remain on this page and within this frame alone. So now I'm just going to go ahead and hit Command Z a bunch of times to go back to having it as an instance. And you can see now it's an instance again because it has a little purple border, as well as on my layers panel it says tutorial card, and it has a little icon that we had before. So now I know this is an instance of that component. So feel free to take advantage of components wherever you can. Whenever you see you have multiple objects that are related or look the same, you probably can put it in a master component. And so now I want to give you a little exercise to actually go ahead and put our buttons in a separate component as well. And the reason is, as you've noticed, a lot of the buttons that we're using actually have very similar styling. And again, if I decide to change the login button here to be bold, my other buttons will not use that property because I'm only changing my login button here. But typically we want our buttons to look the same or very similar with just small adjustments such as the background color or the text color. So feel free to do this exercise and create a master component from your buttons and maybe place them outside of your design over here. And then go ahead and create instances wherever you see we have that button used. One thing I do want to mention before you jump into that exercise is that once you create a master component here, be sure to make an instance and put it into here instead of your separate cards, because again, this is a component, this is an instance of that component. So whatever change you want to make here, especially in terms of what you want to add or remove to this whole group here, you'd want to do it inside of the master component. If you don't want to do this exercise, feel free to skip it and then just jump into the next video where we're going to actually do it together and learn a little bit more about components because they're super powerful.